It's the SDG Podcast. Before we get started, you can check us out on the web at solutiondesign.com/podcast or find us on all the social medias, LinkedIn, Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at Solution Design Group.
All right, we're back. Welcome, gentlemen. We've got Peter Lawrence joining us today, Chad Juttner, and joining us again, John Brindel. He's here to talk about AI and data. He's one of our data scientists, AI experts. So we asked him to be here because we're talking about DeepSeek, which came out January 20th as kind of the latest generative AI type model like ChatGPT, Claude AI, that kind of stuff. But the big bang was kind of the cost in resources and things like that. So it was kind of a shakeup. John, can you give us a quick explanation of a little deeper on what it is and why it created such a kerfuffle?
Yeah, sure thing. So first off, DeepSeek is a new entrant to the market. They're not an established player in the AI game. They're actually a startup that's been funded by a Chinese VC company. Or is it a VC or hedge fund? I don't know. But it's some kind of a financial services company in China essentially has funded this little startup. And what they did is they released a model called DeepSeek, and DeepSeek is able to perform comparably to, I would say, OpenAI GPT-4. I have seen some comparisons to 4.0 that look favorable. It's still kind of new, so we don't really understand fully like how it compares to every model. It doesn't compare favorably to the very newest models from OpenAI. So like O3, the kind of advanced reasoning model they just put out, it's been shown to like not hit those performance benchmarks, but it wasn't really designed to, right? Like this was designed more as a proof of concept, I would say, because the big difference between this and all the other models is how efficient it is, how much cheaper it is, how much fewer compute resources it takes to train. So to give kind of a broad overview, it's about 1/20th the cost to train the DeepSeek model. It cost something I believe in the range of $5 million to set up and train this model. They did it with, I think, like 500 GPUs that they were able to lay their hands on. It was either 500 or 1,000, but something like that. GPUs they were able to lay their hands on before the US ban on exporting the NVIDIA GPUs went into effect. And they were able to pull it off. And I can get into like how they did it, but even with only a small subset of the number of GPUs that were being used by companies like OpenAI, the OpenAI models were taking 10 to 20,000 GPUs to train. And they were costing in the neighborhood of $100 million to train those models. So the fact that OpenAI could do it with about 1,000 GPUs and $5 million just kind of lays, it knocks down a lot of assumptions we've made about the AI market. And so I'm happy to expand on those today.
I mean, we talked about that AI was going to take all the power in the whole world and use it just for compute resources. And that seems to be a little bit different now. A question that comes to my mind is like, you said proof of concept. Is that like my proof of concept where it looks really cool to the business users, but it's actually all fake hard-coded data underneath? And
no. So one interesting thing about this is another difference between this and the other like major AI models is that this one's open source. You can download a Git repo and get like all of the information about the parameters. The training data itself is not open source, but you can download the model, like inspect the parameters, see how it was trained. And ever since it's been released, it's been being tested by lots of the companies over here, and it's generally performing comparably in tests. I say proof of concept because a lot of people are looking at this model and they're like, oh, it doesn't quite do what GPT-3.0 does or something. And it's like, well, it wasn't intended to. Like this was intended to match or come close to matching the models that cost so much more to train, and kind of show that this market's a lot more open, I think, than people have assumed it to be, And the thing is, the technology behind this is not new. The way that this, so I'll just kind of back up and give you a quick download on like how this is so much cheaper and faster. It's not faster, but I should say faster to train, perhaps. So GPT-4.0, Claude, Grok, like whatever, any of the big models that you think of here in the US as like major players in the AI game, are kind of variations on the same theme. They're what we call dense models. And what a dense model means, models are kind of measured by the number of parameters they have. You'll sometimes see, this model has 7 billion parameters or 20 billion or something. So a dense model means that when that model is active, all of those parameters are active as well, right? So when you fire up ChatGPT, every single piece of training data, every single parameter is active in that model. And when you put your information in your prompt, it is going through all of those parameters to get the answer for you. The thing that allowed DeepSeek to do this much more efficiently is they use a technique called mixture of experts. And the metaphor I like to use for mixture of experts, if you think about the way that ChatGPT works, you're basically taking one person and you're trying to get them to understand absolutely everything about the entire world. Give them all of the information we have about everything, and it's going to map, that person is going to try and understand all of the relationships. That model needs to be as much of an expert in orthopedic medicine as it does in Chinese history, right? And but for most queries, you're not going to be asking about orthopedic medicine and Chinese history. So do you need to have that entire network activated in order to answer the question? No, you don't, right? Most questions are domain specific. And so the way that a mixture of experts model works is you have this kind of gating mechanism. I've sometimes explained it as an entry point model that's understanding kind of what you're asking. And that entry point mechanism then determines how much of this network of parameters do we actually need to activate to answer this question. So instead of training a model that learns absolutely everything about the entire universe, we're creating kind of an expert model. And we'll have multiple of these expert models for different domains. You'll have the orthopedic medicine model. And when you ask your question about orthopedic medicine, it's not going to have to activate all of those nodes about Chinese history at the same time.
Right.
And so you're able to do the calculations with a lot less computational time. It doesn't take nearly as much time to train these models. Technically, the amount of input data is the same, but it kind of turned the model for optimization on its head, because until now, when we think about how to improve AI models like GPT-4o and such, it's always a question of give it more computational power, give it more GPUs, give it more training data. Let's scale up kind of the infrastructure and the inputs, and that's the way that we'll make it better. They do something called reinforcement learning a lot. But it's generally been kind of a function of, in order to make these models better, we need to build more infrastructure. We need more GPUs. We need more training data, more.
Make NVIDIA stock go up.
Yes.
I'm going to need Antarctica, 3 Mile Island.
Yeah. Exactly.
We can do this.
And it's interesting to, I don't know, the thing that I've been thinking on a little bit since this happened is, who's behind most of the AI development in the country right now, right? It's the big tech players. It's Microsoft. It is AWS. It is, you've got Google and I guess now X, Tesla, whatever. But these are the big name tech companies that are doing all of this work. And if you really think about the main AI algorithms that are kind of popular and in wide use today, most of them had significant investment from companies like AWS, Azure, GCP. Right. And so I feel like there might be kind of a perverse incentive built into the way that we've structured the AI market, that there's an incentive to opt toward the strategies that involve scaling up your compute, scaling up your GPU usage, scaling up all of your infrastructure usage, because that's the companies that have kind of invested in developing this sector, right?
Well, and they've made it super easy to do at home or at your desk, right?
Yeah.
I mean, Chad, you've had some AI things spin up and going through some dollars and cents and chewing up.
We spend some money once in a while. But yeah, I mean, to John's point, this stuff has gotten, every month it gets easier and easier and easier for people that like to tinker to play around with this stuff. The DeepSeek model that John mentioned, I actually started downloading it, and like any dummy, right? I'm just well, the bigger is better, right? So I download the largest one you can get, and it's 400 and 10 gigabytes of data to download. So you download it, right? Like my preferred track is I download it, you play with it on using Ollama, and set up that as your AI, and it's actually it is cool. I've got it integrated into my my dev tools, right? So like I'm an IntelliJ guy. I like that tool set.
Yeah.
There's an AI assist that can point to Ollama as your source. So now I actually canceled my OpenAI subscription after downloading this because it was that good, right? Like I was paying $20 a month to use OpenAI and have it, and this was it's absolutely solid.
So are you running all this locally, Chad, on your laptop?
Yeah, you can run it. Not the 400 gig model. I dialed it back, and then I grabbed. I think there was a 70 gig. But like John said, I mean, it's you totally don't need to know about Chinese history in order for it to complete a Java syntax, right? Like that's I don't know, John. It almost seems so obvious right now to us. Like, why did we need to have everything in there?
Yeah.
Like their solution, their methodology seems like it was so freaking obvious, and now it'll be interesting to see how other companies take this concept.
Yeah.
And run with it.
Well, and like I should probably say, like, this technique, like mixture of experts, has existed since like the 90s. There was a paper written by a computer scientist back then that kind of proposed this idea. There has been a limitation in terms of just the technological know-how of like, how do we only activate this part of the network, right? Like, how do we implement this gating mechanism that's going to decide how much of the network is going to be activated? So there's a certain element of it that is, why didn't we get this done quicker? I think that probably the incentives were wrong, but there was also like a side that is true innovation, like truly this, they kind of solved a problem that we didn't really have a good answer for, right?
When you have a cloud computer, you don't necessarily worry about writing the most efficient code that exists, right? It's sort of like, I'll go back and tune that later if I have to, but otherwise, for now, I'll just spin up 4 extra copies of whatever I'm doing.
Well, because none of these AI companies have ever had like a real paucity of resources, right? Like they've always had funding, they've always had infrastructure available. And so anytime they come up with like, oh, we could try to make this more efficient and like do all the optimization, but it's more exciting to like try and use what's working and just push it to the limit and get it out there and like make a splash, right?
And it's cool to ask something about Chinese history and orthopedic surgery and get an answer for both, right?
It's true.
Well, it depends on what you ask in terms of Chinese history. It was built, there's a layer that makes it safe for China. So if you ask it things that it would not be okay to ask in China, it's going to telling you that. It's weird how I read something about that, and it's not built into the model. It comes after the model kicks out the output.
Yeah.
So you'll see it start writing, and then it'll disappear. But then if you run it locally, is that still the case?
I haven't run it locally. Chad, have you asked it about Tiananmen Square or anything?
I haven't. I didn't think to. But that's interesting. I hang on a second.
Yeah.
While you guys are doing that, let me
Maybe your
it out.
IntelliJ will tell us about Chinese history.
I asked like how much pollution China was responsible for, and it gave me a long speech about all the green stuff that they're doing, and it wouldn't tell me.
It is interesting because I did go to China. I was in China in 2008. I just got hungry. I wanted to takeout, and
took a left at Albuquerque.
Yeah,
Authentic.
Yeah, it doesn't get well. Actually, I think I ate more McDonald's there and Kentucky Fried Chicken in China than I ever had before. I don't know why. For some reason, Kentucky Fried Chicken is huge in China. But when you're there, like, you can't Google these things, or you can't you can go to Wikipedia, like it was open, but certain articles you wouldn't see. Right? I thought it was like nonsense. I thought it was like, they're not X. Then you get there and I'm like, yeah, you really, really can't find a lot. So I don't know, given that it was sourced there. It'd be interesting to find out, like you were saying, John, the provenance of the data. Is there research on it? Did they publish anything about like where their data sets are coming from, or?
I feel like there's been some accusation about them stealing data or using data that was acquired by originally by OpenAI, or maybe like using some of the OpenAI models. But like I find it kind of rich coming from OpenAI, who basically stole all of their data.
I feel like all the AI companies are having that same argument round and round in circles, right?
Yeah,
It does
We read the internet, so if it was out there, we got it.
the legal justification I think that OpenAI had been using was the same as what Google used. Like they used the Google book scanning cases as precedent because
Yep.
they're not creating new works based on the content. They're not creating derivatives. They're not doing like a lot of the things. They're providing a utility, and the judge agreed with Google in that case, and so OpenAI is piggybacking on that. And then the weird thing about DeepSeek is they are kind of mimicking exactly what OpenAI is doing, but it's open source. I don't know. It's a sticky wicket. If you're able to sue a Chinese company, good luck.
yeah, exactly.
So
I don't-
being that this is a product from China, there's always security concerns. Is any of this talking back? Like if you run it locally, I've been running it on the web, playing around with it, and I'm sure that's going somewhere to a server. What about the stuff you run locally? Is there any concern that you're giving away all your data?
I've not run it locally, so I couldn't say, but it's open source. So if they did put a backdoor in there, somebody's going to find it someday.
Yeah, I'm not. I mean, as far as all my data, it's an AI model. I don't think the mechanics of how that thing operates, I don't think would necessarily pull anything locally into the model. And like, I think that's your concern, right, Kyle? Where like, is it going to pull data locally into the model? Is it going to send it to the Chinese folks?
Right.
And
All my questions go to China.
Yeah, I mean, think about the cross section of the folks that would actually do what we're doing, right? Like pull down the model, run it via Olama, et cetera, et cetera. We're not that interesting. That's what I've always told folks. Is that I'm not interesting enough to be hacked. Like I'm not always super concerned about my personal data, especially in this scenario.
Security through obscurity.
Yeah, a little bit, yeah. Just be a plain vanilla person, and probably not the best strategy.
Be a plain megabyte amongst petabytes of data.
So, so this is a team of experts. Like you go into the hospital and you broke your leg, and it's like, well, I need to see somebody that knows about legs and cancer and eyesight, and it's like, no, just go to the leg guy. And so is that an advantage or a disadvantage in terms of like how it's used?
It's a trade-off. So ChatGPT, the dense models, they take a fair amount of time to give you an answer because there are so many nodes that it needs to use in order to like answer your question. The mixture of experts model will answer the question, like we'll actually get the answer quicker, but that's only through the semi-activated network. You still have all of the steps about like the gating and of doing the correct routing to make sure you're activating the right part of the network. And so right now it's kind of a wash. Like I'm finding that DeepSeek is rough. It takes about the same amount of time to answer a question as GPT-4o does. It's possible that as technology continues to advance and like we get better at building these gating mechanisms, better at doing the routing, that you're going to see models of this class probably perform quicker than dense models. And so I think that this is probably the direction that the whole market's going to be moving. Just my own 2 cents.
So you think
That
things will
response
segment
speed.
out?
What's that?
Sorry. Go ahead, Peter.
I was just going to ask, like, do you think it'll segment out? So where Kyle was talking about a hospital situation, do you think the AI for a hospital will get specialized to leg doctor or lung doctor or et cetera? Will that AI go past into the expert range?
I don't think I understand the question.
We're talking about, like, you've got this front end that sort of has an expertise that then activates the right number of nodes based on that expertise, right? Mm-hmm. Is there a case where you've got an expert is going to be trained, it's going to skip the sort of, the node specialization will be more tightly filtered down to just like hospital stuff. And
so you're
then
kind
it'll
of
be
asking...
are we going to get smaller AIs doing really specialized things without needing the full, rich models that we're creating?
I think that will require another So my understanding of what you're asking is kind of when you have this like expert model, is the expert model able to develop that expertise beyond what a dense model that has to learn everything would have? Not under the current technology, I don't think, because we're still using the same basic transformer architecture for these models, right? Like it's answering your question in the same way. And I think for us to have a model that could like sharpen its expertise like that would require probably some type of what would I say? I think that would require probably some advance in how we're doing reinforcement learning.
Another leap.
Another leap. Yeah. We're not quite there yet. It's still kind of a word calculator. It's just doing it more efficiently.
Kyle, you were asking about speed?
Well, yeah, as a digital assistant, I've got, ChatGPT on my phone, and I ask it questions and stuff, but the speed at which it answers me is kind of off-putting. It's too slow for me. It doesn't feel natural.
You want to know if you should turn here right now.
So if I go DeepSeek and it can process that stuff faster, it sounds to me like it would make a better digital assistant.
Yeah, and it's going to get faster. I don't know that DeepSeek is necessarily going to be the company that puts out a faster version of this, but I would say probably it's going to be one of the big players who has a lot of data scientists and a lot of capacity to research these things. But now that the proof of concept has been shown to be successful and to produce a comparable model, I think we're going to see more refinements just on that pattern for a while. And you're going to see less and less use of dense models, probably.
Are they going to de-densify those models? Are they going to like retrofit GPT to be like the mixture of experts?
I mean, I think that you'll eventually see dense models probably not be supported any longer. I mean, they are so much more expensive to run, so much more expensive to train, and they don't do better in a way that justifies that expenditure, right? Okay. So I don't see the economic argument for why we continue to have dense models. Beyond the next maybe year or so. It's going to take a while for the companies to adjust and to implement their own versions of mixture of expert models. But once they get those implemented, I think that the dense model is kind of extinct.
Interesting. Wasn't it $1 billion to train GPT-4?
I had heard a figure of 100 million, but who knows? OpenAI is surprisingly not very open. So
they're open to AI. They're fans.
So because this is open source, does that mean that all of these players can just grab it, customize it, throw it into their stuff, and benefit from it? I
mean, I'm not sure exactly what licensing terms they released it under, but I don't think it really matters. Yes, they're going to be tearing apart how they did this. They're going to be implementing it themselves. And I would bet that you're going to start to see the next step is going to be OpenAI, maybe Google, maybe something like Meta is going to release their own mixture of experts model that's going to do better than DeepSeek did, more quick, or faster. That's the word we use, right? It'll be faster. And probably a lot less expensive to train than Llama was. I don't think that DeepSeek is going to be a permanent player on this stage necessarily. I think that they brought the idea forward. They showed that there's actually an opportunity for competition in the market. And I think that that's really my main takeaway. I think that the biggest splash and the reason that this tanked everyone's stock prices is because this shows that there is not actually as much of a barrier to entry as there was assumed to be, right? Before this, in order to produce an AI model that could compete with OpenAI, you need to have $100 million to $1 billion in financing. You need to have the best data scientists. You need to have all of this information, all of this infrastructure, and essentially they have shown no, you don't. You just need a few $1 million, and you need a scarcity mindset, and you can actually do a lot with that.
So kind of gone from an established company with riches to more of a startup. I can get $6 million somehow, whereas I might not be able to get $100 million from my investors or whatever.
Exactly.
That's interesting.
I think that's going to be the biggest change to the market overall, and frankly, I think it's a good change. More small startups, they're going to probably be the ones who are really going to drive innovation in the space. So I'm looking forward to it.
I mean, ChatGPT was pretty innovative 2 years ago. Like we just started having this.
2019 was really when I think 2019 was like when they really came out, right?
Okay, to the normal generic business programmer, I'm going to say it was a couple years ago.
Very well.
We didn't have our learning community until 2022.
Like they had been around, like John's not around. They'd been around forever, but like it wasn't. Nobody was talking about AI to this degree in 2021. Really, I think it was November of 2021. ChatGPT 3 came out, and that somehow just caught fire, and
someone started writing term papers for school, and then it went whoa.
But it was strange though, because some of the previous GPT models, so as I'm tinkering locally, like just putting things together with LangChain, and the prior to GPT-3, like those also weren't bad models, right? Like as you'd go through the model evaluation. So I'm trying to remember what specifically just like triggered everybody get into, like, I don't know, maybe they just had a better marketing department.
I think it was the publicly available interface that normal, regular, everyday people could ask questions to and get a AI generated response in a quick amount of time, which made a lot of reporters write a lot of stories, or a lot of AI reporters write a lot of stories, maybe. I don't know.
Absolutely.
Yeah, maybe that's it. ChatGPT started writing stories for itself.
Oh, yes.
That's what happened.
I started writing emails in iambic pentameter, and nobody noticed.
But it has come on the market strong, and this has come on the market pretty strong as well.
Indeed, it has. But I think this was necessary. Like, yes, ChatGPT was very innovative back like in 2021, 2019, I will say, because like that's when I was starting to pay attention.
That's when the data scientists caught wind of it.
Yeah, that's when we were like starting to like pay attention to it. But like they were very innovative back then. I would argue that innovation has slowed in the last couple of years in the AI space. Like we've not been seeing the major like leaps forward. Most of the new products that we see are packagings of the same models that have existed for a while, or specific niche uses of those models. But this unleashes like a whole new round of innovation, right? So, I mean, another thing is like as these models continue to get smaller, we could have applications for like embedded independent AI like robotics. Right now, that would rely on like a good network connection or like having a lot of storage and a lot of processing power in the unit. But think about what you can do with like embedded AI in small device applications. And I think we're going to see a lot of that kind of innovation coming down the pipeline.
Probably continued in enhancing the QA and quality end of things of manufacturing, right?
Yeah, totally.
So, as companies figure out how to adopt these things and what they're going to do with them, is this going to move the timetable up for a lot of projects?
You mean existing projects? Like
the ability to do like to get on board and use the tools to build that chat bot that you're kind of running lean, but you still want to make improvements and do things with it.
Yeah, it's an open source model, so that's revolutionary, right? Like none of the models that were built by OpenAI, I mean, unless the model became very outdated, they didn't really open source most of these models, and maybe they would make a version of the model available for free public use, but they would not still show you like how did we build this model. So this opens up a lot of opportunity for innovation, because now a lot of people who would not have had the resources to fully like tear apart these models to do all of the ground research, they're not having to start from zero anymore, right? They have something to kind of launch from.
Yeah, and our people, I love that this exists. I love that it's open source. And like I said earlier, like I'm able to cancel my OpenAI subscription now because of this. And I think for people building products on top of an AI platform, like it makes more sense for me to run this prompt locally, as opposed to like sending, subscribing to whoever, right? I'm really familiar with OpenAI, and I'm familiar with Bedrock from AWS's offerings. Right. And the cost structure there, but like for a lot of things, like I'm building a demo for demo concert calendar aggregator thing, right? And building that against OpenAI's APIs, like every time I run it, it's 35 cents. And I have 35 cents, right? I'm okay there. I've got, candy bar money. But if you did it like, a lot, it does kind of add up, I think. So
100 times and you're starting to talk beer money instead of candy bar money.
Do you realize how small a 35-cent candy bar is nowadays?
Yeah,
It's like a Tic Tac.
It's true.
Yeah, candy bar money has gone up to about $2.50 now a candy bar instead of.
Yeah.
I don't even want to speculate what it was back when I was a kid, but it was a lot smaller.
So
Maybe
is this going to bring infrastructure back into organizations, or is this something that you would like run in AWS or Azure?
I don't know. I may not be the best person to answer that question. What do you think?
I think it's just like all the other serverless AWS architectures, everything else, right? Like this is just another utility out there, and where you host it and how you host it, it's going to side saddle with whatever else, how do I say it? Whatever your current architectural strategy is, you're going to find a place for this in there potentially, right? Like if I'm in the AWS ecosystem, I haven't checked in a little bit. I don't know if Bedrock has a DeepSeek version or a DeepSeek model out there yet. I'd be willing to bet they do.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And if not, it's coming next week.
Yeah,
Sure.
Probably, right? Like and especially, if it's open source, why wouldn't they, right? Amazon. Yeah. AWS, they want to sell compute resources, and this is a great use of them. But I think if it's to Kyle's question, I don't think this is going to displace anything that you're doing currently with your architecture.
It's not going to change your mind. You're not changing your architecture based on this.
Yeah, exactly. It's going to be wherever your architecture is. This will just be out there too.
I will say we're probably going to see a lot more illicit uses of this than we've seen of other AI products, because you can run it locally, so there's no guardrail in place to keep you from asking for the recipe of certain chemical compounds and stuff like that, right?
That's a great point. And it doesn't have the guardrails that a lot of these other models have. Like you can ask it for, it's easy to make it swear, right? Like it's actually kind of tricky to get the NSFW filter out of OpenAI. Well, it used to be. I haven't tried in a bit.
Once you practice enough, it's easy, huh?
But yeah, once there's more, once the image generation gets a little bit better, that's nerve-wracking. And the use cases for that, the bad ones are obvious, and we don't want to talk about those.
Yes.
But
Don't want to give anybody any ideas.
this was inevitable, right? Like this was going to happen. This is the natural
Is
trajectory.
this going to cause a regulatory reaction of some sort?
Like you very well may see that. Like I guess it depends on the extent to which it actually is used illicitly. Like, does this become enough of a problem that regulators say something about it? I don't know. That might be a few years down the road. Like for right now, at least, running this individually, like on your own computer, is still kind of in the realm of nerds, right? Like it's not something that anyone can do. But that'll change, right, over time. And probably somebody will come up with a product where you can just have an app and like this is your own AI. Like you can do whatever you want with it. There's no guardrails, right?
Good luck. You're playing with live ammo now.
Yeah.
It's a different game.
So I don't know. We'll see how big of a problem it turns out to be. But yeah, like same way that with the internet, you had like the dark net come up and regulations around that. You're probably going to see similarly effective regulations too come to pass.
And just like locks on your doors, right? They keep the honest people honest. I don't walk into Kyle's office because the door's locked. Unless I really need a extension cord, then I'll find the key.
I think the longest I've ever locked myself out of my house is about 1 minute, where I couldn't just check the door open people will find a way to abuse anything. Right. So it's just don't be evil.
Yeah.
Be good. So if I want to create an agent that searches the entirety of our HQ and specific Slack channels, benefits, like those kind of things, and then have it be its own Slack channel where you can ask it questions like a super FAQ type thing. Is that something that's going to be easily attainable and much cheaper now?
Probably not. Agent models are a whole different class of I don't know. It's a whole different technical problem you're trying to solve. OpenAI recently released their own kind of prototype of an agent model that would be, I don't know, they marketed it as being able to, you can just say to your assistant, like, oh, order me groceries from Instacart or something, and it would know to like open Instacart. It would know like to look for the closest grocery store. It would know to do X and Y, but it turned out to not be very effective at all. It was like ordering groceries in the wrong city for the person, and it was like ordering the wrong groceries. We haven't really done all the work we need to do for agent models to work yet, and I don't think that this innovation is necessarily going to make agent models easier to train. I mean, it'll make it cheaper, I guess, but I don't think this technology like is a step in the direction of agent models. Just a different path.
I did go peek at AWS, and 7 days ago they got the DeepSeek model out there. So
there you have it.
Yeah.
So John, you're saying this is not going to organize, categorize, and clean up my content?
Nope, not yet.
Thought we were close.
Apple is developing. Well, there's rumors, right? Their innovation lab, they just had something they published around like a desktop robot, like a robot that does, home tasks. So I don't know that we're necessarily that far off. The OCR that can be built into these. I mean, the mechanics of robotics is fairly well defined now. Like that doesn't need to change too much. It's really just, building in onboard OCR and everything else. Like that gets interesting kind of fast. I like that.
Yeah. As long as we can get the 3 rules of robotics in there right away, I think we'll be okay.
Well, and I like the idea of I like the idea of these models being able to actually run on the hardware of the robots, because like we've already seen the weaknesses of depending on kind of a vendor model for robotics with like that Moxie bot. Did everyone follow that?
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
So Peter, they created this robot that used generative AI to essentially the shtick was that it helps kids who are experiencing social problems or maybe they have like developmental issues, and like the robot will talk with your kid and like help them develop social skills, and like they become friends with the robot and things of that sort. But then Moxie went out of business, and they basically said, we're going to brick your robots because we can't keep providing all the server space for this. And now there's like all of these devastated children who were very good friends with their robots, and now the robot just won't talk to them anymore. And it's kind of heartbreaking.
That is a challenge, isn't it? I mean, that's constantly been a sort of cloud dependent services model that's great for the company to longevity wise until it's not. And then it's really challenging. Well, and I worry about my car right now. Like it's got Android, the latest version.
This services going away thing is I don't play as many video games as I used to, but like video games, right? Like open world gaming. So many of those have just shut down with active communities, and then you have the community take it over. It'd be kind of interesting to figure out why Moxie. Like, do you know, John, did anybody try to like open source the back end? And
yeah, the developers did release like an open source version of the software, but it's not going to be able to get like active updates or anything of that sort. And so they're kind of seeing it as a band-aid solution and hoping that a community of developers finds this and continues to work on it. And the advent of something like onboard AI could actually get us a little bit closer to fixing that, right?
Yep. Pebble Watch is coming back.
Pebble?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I'm okay with like if a place goes out of business and all that, that stuff happens. But I want it to just, okay, now that thing's not going to get updates. It's not going to get any better. And if it breaks, I might not be able to get it fixed. But I don't like a company going out of business and pushing a button that says brick everything.
Not great.
That's a challenge.
I read that the models are not open source for DeepSeek. Is that correct?
No, the data is not open source.
The data is not open source.
The training data is not open source.
Okay.
But the model itself is open source.
The model that's different than the data. Okay.
Hard to keep track of all of it.
Yeah.
It is. It's confusing to me.
GitHub has DeepSeek-AI, and you can see everything. I still get back to like just how cool it is, the way, I guess I didn't realize, John, that this concept had been around for so long, but just makes me feel a little silly that, we thought we would need like more and more and more data to feed into these things. Where, I mean, do you though? Like, give it Encyclopedia Britannica and Wikipedia and, you know, the Cambridge data sets that they have out there to build up a vocabulary, and then enhance it with domain specific knowledge, which is basically the idea. And then you have the NLP at the front, the language processor, figuring out, okay, what's the context they're looking for, shoot it down there. It's such a pretty little design, and it's so obvious right now. And I wonder if there's a guy at OpenAI right now, like the guy that designed, like, no, we need everything, and we need to like rehydrate, you know, Love Island or whatever, 3 Mile Island, with nuclear energy to pull it all in. And then somebody's like, oh yeah, the Chinese did it in like with, you know, in their free time.
There was a guy that fought tooth and nail for the multiple experts model that kept getting shot down, and now he's sitting in his basement desk.
Yeah. I mean, it is one of those like dope, you know, like ultimate facepalm kind of moments for me. I'm like, yeah, why didn't we think about this earlier? I don't know. I think it's just the incentive structure we set up was such that there was no reason for people to do this. Like, it is the harder thing to develop, right? Like, it takes a lot more research and development time than just building a bigger transformer model like that's dense. And so like that was paying off, right? They were releasing dense models. The market was excited. People were buying it. They were getting more funding. So like, why change?
I was thinking that same thing. Like, you start with the you know, just the dense model, and you just get momentum, right? You're like, all right, I'm going to add this. Now I'm going to add this. Now we're going to find more data. Okay, now let's start over again. We know all of this. Now we're going to add all of this. Like, nobody just stops and says, hey, is this dumb? Like, we're already billions of dollars into the training and everything else and the resources, and nobody really says, is this a good, like, are we doing this wrong? Like,
and I'm sure that this was on a backlog somewhere.
Sunk cost fallacy.
We've gone this far.
Nobody changes the recipe of Coca-Cola. They tried once, didn't work.
Let me ask you this. So if you go into ChatGPT, there's all of these GPTs in there. So there's like specialized, you know, I'll just look at them here. Well, there's Dolly, and there's one called Data Analyst, Hot Mods, Coloring Book Hero,
Universal Primer. Yeah, there's a lot of them.
Yeah, what's the difference between those and the kind of many experts thing?
A lot of those are just about like, what is the purpose of the model? So like, they have a model called Universal Primer, and the idea behind Universal Primer is that it is there to explain any subject that you ask it about in a way that is going to make it easy for you to learn. Like, they're going to talk to you about the subject like a teacher would. They're going to give you metaphors and examples and things that are relatable to try and like help you understand the subject. Whereas GPT-4o is more built for, I'm going to ask you a specific question. I want you to like give me like a concise answer that like provides enough reasoning that I have confidence in it. Whereas like 3o, I think is the name of the model, is like advanced mathematical reasoning and programming, right? And so essentially these are all models built to different domains, but behind the scenes, they are still a dense model. So nothing has changed about like the way that they're designed, the way that they work. They are just sometimes smaller models built for a different purpose.
Yeah, they're trained.
So what should the confidence index be in these things? Like, if you measure, like, okay, how much is it going to hallucinate? Is it going to give you the wrong answers?
There are metrics that people have. There's a whole system of metrics around this, which I shamefully have not really learned my way through. So I don't feel like I can really weigh in on that right now, unfortunately.
I feel like there was a time where if you started your like speech or presentation with Wikipedia defines, you know, you'd get laughed off the stage by all of the English majors and whatnot. But so if I go up and I say DeepSeek defines this as, is it as laughable?
No, it's not. You know, and there are scientists who have metrics for this, and they've been doing the analysis of it. I've only read their analysis, and when I see them listing these metrics, and they're all very comparable to GPT-4o, to GPT-4, whatever. I don't know. That's kind of the best I can do right now. I don't really I should look into that before I get on the podcast next time. Maybe I
Yeah,
will come back ready to talk to you
know
about AI
everything
metrics.
because I thought you did because you're.
Come on, Brindle. You're supposed to know literally everything.
You need to be that super dense model that we all have
Sorry about
questions
the Song
of.
Dynasty. All right.
Any parting thoughts before we shut her down, gentlemen?
I will say that it is remarkably easy if you have the space for it to pull this down, play with it locally. For developers, for nerds, if you're building things, it will make it, well, one, make your life a little bit easier, right? Once you figure it out. Two, it'll save you money. I'm excited. It's kind of fun.
So my final thought is I think it's an amazing change of thought patterns, and like everything, when you have a new idea, it starts everybody running in a different direction and can only help out, make things go faster and stronger.
Yeah, I'm really excited to see this myself. Like, as a person who follows the AI space closely, like I was honestly getting kind of bored of all of these like variations on the same theme. Like, we're all just going to try and add more data to the model, and like also there was a real world limit to where we could go with these models because like there is only so much data. Another thing I didn't talk about is that this model also proves that you can use synthetic data in training a model, and it won't poison the model necessarily if you're careful about how you do it. So this DeepSeek innovation just kind of excited me about the whole market in a way that a lot of the other stuff has not.
Get us beyond chatbots soon.
Yeah.
Nobody wants another chatbot, and it is frustrating. I'm tired of hearing new things get like repeatedly, right? Like we had the models, and then we had these RAG, and then it was RAG, and then it was graph RAG, and then it was agents, and now it's agentic, and it's like, quit inventing words. We're all doing the same thing, right? We're building cool stuff on top of an AI model, and the terminology around it and the way we refer to it is so silly. I think like this came into being, and everybody wants to be the first person to invent a whatever. I don't know, man. Like I'm happy to have it locally. I'm happy to be able to build on top of it, doing whatever I want to do without having to pay a lot of money, and that's going to be fun.
Yeah.
So
I have 12 gig of VRAM. I've got a second hard drive with 4 terabytes on it. I know what I'm going to be doing this afternoon.
There you go. Nice.
Yeah, sounds like fun.
Yeah. All right. Thank you, gentlemen. I think with that, we'll say goodbye, everybody.
All right.
Yep.
See you
Bye,
guys.
everybody.
Solution Design Group is a digital product consultancy in Minneapolis. Check us out on the web at solutiondesign.com or look for us on Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, and Instagram at Solution Design Group.